Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Mistress America. Making a modern film that's very influenced by older studio comedies, work of Preston Sturges or Billy Wilder, or like screwball comedies, is something Hollywood, especially in the 90s, has tried to do many times, and it usually doesn't work. It usually looks very fake and very Hollywood and looks like an echo of a former gloried past of the ancient Hollywood studio system. And I never really liked them. It always just felt like them trying to recapture something in a real desperate plea to go back to something without having the stars to do it, without having the screenplays to back it up. It is kind of when films that always felt lighter actually become just lighter, forgettable fare. Mistress America is an exception to that and really recaptures the kind of lighter screwball comedies of Hollywood yore and brings them to the modern setting in such an amazing way that it reminds me of the relatability of those films. They might take place in the 30s, but it happened one night I can still relate to. And Mistress America has that going all throughout it, with two great lead performances by Greta Gerwig and Lola Kirk, and some excellent direction by Noah Baumbach. It very much shows how these kind of studio comedies of yesteryear were very much expertly directed, and how there was a real fine craftsmanship to them, and it's a real amazing, great experience when someone does them well. And I think when you look at a film like Mistress America, it makes you appreciate that, and it shows how wonderful that can really be, and how smart something like that can really be, and how personal it can be at the same time. The girl named Tracy, who is just starting her freshman year of college at Columbia University, and she's a lit major, and she's not having the greatest time until she talks to her mom about her mom's new fiance, who has a 30-something daughter living in Manhattan, and she decides to meet up with her after having not such a great experience in college and kind of wanting a friend. So she meets up with her kind of new semi-stepsister or sister through marriage, played by Greta Gerwig, named Brooke, and she's very much infatuated with Brooke, loves going places with her, and then starts writing a story about her called Mistress America. After an offhand comment that Brooke makes, Brooke is kind of everything you'd want to look up to. She gets to sing with a band, she has a lot of self-confidence, she seems to be involved in a million different things. She teaches Soul Cycle, she tutors kids with math, she wants to open a restaurant, general store, salon called Mom's, so it feels like you're eating at home. She has lived many lives. She has a boyfriend that she hates but she also loves, called Stavros, who's a Greek guy who's betting against the government to fail. She has enemies who's ripped off her t-shirt ideas, and Lola really loves hanging out with her and becomes infatuated with the idea of her while also criticizing her and recognizing her faults in her short story, and follows her along and eventually decides, after her boyfriend Stavros sees pictures of Brooke making out with someone from the band she sang with online, decides to break up with her, and Brooke has to go and find Mamie Claire and her ex-fiance, who's now Mamie Claire's husband, and try to get the money from them in an awkward, crazy screwball comedy setup that has everything kind of fall apart and come together. One of the great things about Mistress America, I think, is how it really combines the classic comedy or a lighter comedy with almost what feels like an autobiographical sense to it. I don't think it really is autobiographical. This was written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, who collaborated before on Frances Ha, which is a film I very much loved. And with both Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, I feel like Frances Ha felt very autobiographical, and Noah Baumbach has made a very autobiographical film like The Squid and the Whale. And Mistress America, I think what makes it feel, because screwball comedy, when you had things like The Philadelphia Story, the joke of them was how crazy they could be, but there was a real tempo that they can pull this off. It's like watching an amazing high wire act of acting. It's just insane. And there's a real fine craftsmanship to it that I think Mistress America shows very well, and it doesn't forget that, but it gives it that realistic feeling. You know, this film all takes place over Tracy's first semester at college, and that semester, for me at least, my first semester at college, felt like a year. It felt like the longest semester of my fucking life. It was just so long. It felt like days were longer. It was not the greatest semester of my college career. It just feels like so life-changing. It feels like there's new things around every corner. It feels so amazing. It feels like everything you've built up years and years towards, it feels freeing. And this film really gets that, and it gets really being infatuated with someone who is so much cooler and older in New York and in the big city and having them take you around and not understanding exactly everything but feeling like you do and sort of understanding certain things about it. That element to it, I think, is the element of Mistress America that makes it something special and makes it different and makes it be able to have all these lighter elements with it. It grounds it in such a way. Most of that is done mainly by a really great performance by Lola Kirk, who you probably know from her performance in Gone Girl as the one who robbed Rosamund Pike in that one famous scene. And she is really great. I'd seen her in Gone Girl, but I didn't really know much about her before this. She gives a kind of performance where you get the kind of naivete of her character, but you also get that she knows she's becoming smarter. You know she's becoming more confident, that she doesn't understand the world, but she understands some facets to it. And Lola Kirk plays that so well. I don't see a lot of college students played in a way that they are confident, where it just doesn't come off like the Kevin Williamson dialogue, where you're just like, oh my god, this feels very written. And this film does feel written to a certain regard, and that is something that goes throughout Baumbach's work quite a bit. Lola Kirk is so essential to this film. You can almost forget about her because of Greta Gerwig. She's so important because she's almost the key of giving it a relatability. It's certainly the perspective of the film. The character of Tracy and what Lola Kirk is doing with it. It gives the film a setting and gives it its need. She's why it's all happening, but you kind of understand it. You understand the youthful enthusiasm and why she keeps wanting to hang out with Brooke. And Greta Gerwig uses her movie star presence in a way that, like, you understand why she keeps wanting to hang out with Brooke, because Brooke's like so much fun to watch, even though you know it might all fall apart, even though you know she's more of a character who likes talking about doing things rather than doing things. You want to see what's going to happen to her. And when you have a character who's infatuated with another character and their personality and everything about them, you need someone like that, and Greta Gerwig plays it up very well. Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach are such a great team together. I really don't honestly want them to make movies without one another, because I don't like Baumbach as much without her, and I honestly don't know much about Greta Gerwig without Baumbach. With this and Frances Ha, they've made two of my favorite movies around this era. There is the scene where it kind of just becomes a screwball comedy. I really like the scene because the way it was all set up, having these two girls who are about to be related by their parents' marriage and getting to know one another, and one's lost and the other is probably lost as well, but uber confident in her 30s and having meetings with investors. It feels more like a setup where you'd have, you know, Greta Gerwig would in the 40s or something be played by Bette Davis or Barbara Stanwyck. It feels like that kind of a setup. When you get to that screwball comedy scene, it makes so much sense, but it does feel like the big action sequence, like the culmination of like everything, and you just have all these characters who just pop in and pop out. That looked like it took like a million years to set up that whole sequence, but everyone's such a pro at it, especially like Heather Lind, who plays Mamie Claire. Everyone in that sequence I just thought did an amazing job. You have to be a fantastically trained actor, like almost a theater actor, to pull that off. That's probably why we don't have as much screwball comedy, because film isn't as based in theater as it once was at that time. Now everything's not as based on theater because it's not as primary to our sense of entertainment as it once was. That might be why people were making films like this, because they were looking back at how they grew up with entertainment, which was watching these kind of films on video or watching these films in a theater, so they wanted to recreate them, and they never quite got it right. And some could say, you know, film has never really recreated the theatrical experience too. This film understood the thematic reasons for doing those things and how that could work for it. There's a realism to it, but you understand it's a movie world. It's almost like a Hollywood version of something, but in that real relatable way that only kind of classic Hollywood could really encapsulate. This doesn't feel like a Lola Kirk or a Greta Gerwig vehicle. It does, I guess, feel like kind of like an indie kind of made film, but that definitely all works for it. It has an amazing score by Dean Wareham and Britta Phillips. It feels very much like an 80s score. It feels like kind of an 80s low budget studio picture kind of score. And I also love how Noah Baumbach kind of can make these films that both criticize New York and also make you kind of love New York in the old Woody Allen sense as well. I think when you think of a lighter film, you do, and I used to look down on that kind of a thing, but this kind of a film, I feel like you have to look at it, especially the screwball sequence, but everything they're doing in it, and how smartly made it is, and how fun it is. And if I was just getting into movies and I saw Frances Ha, I would be thinking like, God, I'd love to live that life as much as I thought she didn't have it all together. And in Mistress America, it's like, you know, that kid went to college and then saw Brooke and looked at her but it's almost like how if I was seeing this film when I was a little bit older, I would still think New York City is really cool and amazing, but also realize the faults in it as well. It doesn't like romanticize any of these characters. As much as Tracy romanticizes Brooke, I don't think the film itself romanticizes anyone. And Tracy doesn't really romanticize her, but in a way she does. She definitely criticizes her, but I think she romanticizes the whole kind of life and hanging out with her. As critical as she is, she feels like a writer. You get the idea of someone who likes hanging out with someone who will constantly call them and knock on their door and see if they're not busy to hang out, and treats her more like a college friend. But Brooke is so freewheeling and crazy and talks a mile a minute. She doesn't mind having the audience, so it kind of works. But it feels like that fantasy that you'd love to live, to move to New York City to live out, but it also feels like uncompromising in what it's doing also. It's like a tight wire act that so many people just fall off of and just fall on the net or just splat on the ground and never really make it work, and the film just dies because of it. But in Mistress America, it shows you how smart they are together and how smart creatively this film is and how it understands what it needs to be and how it needs to be it. When you look at a film that's this well directed in a lighter way, it makes me appreciate that. It makes me go, you can do it, but it's really very hard. Mistress America shows it's possible, but it also shows how much work that really goes into it without it looking too worked on. Having me say all these things while you're watching it, you're not thinking about it. I think you could watch this film and go, that was a nice kind of lighter fare, but there's a lot of thought and intelligence that went into this film. And the smartest thing about it is you could easily watch this film and not see that going on within it, and that's not an insult. That's actually very high praise, because what it's doing is very smartly constructed. If you talk to people in the old Hollywood system, they would spend a lot of time talking about all those things, but they kind of didn't want the audience to know. They wanted the audience to have a good time and sit through a great picture. And Mistress America is more concerned with that. It might be Baumbach's most Hollywood film he's probably ever made that works well on that level. It's probably his most multiplex ready, but I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that in like the best way. I don't think it would really be embraced by a bigger audience, but it really should. I wish it was, because it's kind of just beautiful in its lightness, and I don't think there's a lot of films that can really do that. I kind of almost felt like I hate these kind of films because I've seen so many shitty ones throughout the 90s that I just simply didn't like, and then when I got more into older Hollywood films, I go, but wait a minute, it's not this style, it's not this kind of film, it's the director's doing it. This is probably the film that made me appreciate Baumbach and Gerwig more than ever before, and everyone involved with it. It's a really great movie. I would honestly like to see it again. It's one of those films that there's more complexities in it than you probably recognize, and I think that's what's so great about it, is that I really felt a connection to it. I felt a relatability to it, but I also understood the master craftsmanship to it. And I don't think there's a lot of films that can do both those things on such a magnificent level as Mistress America. So if you have seen Mistress America and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.